Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Christian Music Bros podcast. I'm Brendan, and this is Brandon, and we are joined today by Katy Reynolds, our special guest, Katy Reynolds. Katy, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for having me here. I am a fan of the podcast, so it is exciting to be here. Um, but yeah, I'm from Texas, born and raised there, and I kind of grew up singing in church and started writing songs when I was probably in middle school. And at that time, it was just songs about kind of anything during school. They weren't great, they weren't good. Nobody will hear those, but started out there, and then yeah, just kind of continued just loving music. I never really thought about doing it full time, but ended up moving out here to Nashville in 2019. Or wait, 2020. All the years are confusing. Moved out here in 2020 in June, and yeah, God just really took me through a whole journey of pulling me out of my comfort zone. I was always super afraid to sing in front of anybody or share my songs, and so yeah, He's really worked a lot in my life, and now I live here in Franklin, which is just south of Nashville, and I write for other artists, and then I write obviously for myself and release music and have some singles coming out this year, and so yeah, I'm excited to be here.
We live in Franklin. That's like my dream place to move to when I get older. So
Ah,
like where I always tell people they're like, where do you want to live when you're older? And I'm like, Franklin, Tennessee. And that's like where I always go.
it's so nice. I love Franklin. Yeah, if you haven't been, it's like a little Hallmark town or something, and it's just the nicest place. Yeah, a lot of good people, and I've really enjoyed it. It kind of has a country feel to it, so it has some of the Texas parts, that I'm used to, and yeah, I love it. Highly recommend.
Brian, do you have anything you want to comment or question there? But
Yeah, you mentioned about moving to Nashville recently, like Franklin doing it. I think I saw you actually at a show a few years back. You were performing at the Well Cafe with Grace Graber, Holly Hollowell, which that was awesome. But what's it been like from songwriting compared to where you were in Texas to now being in the Franklin community where so much music is always happening? What's that process been like with songwriting?
Yeah, that's a great question. Coming into moving here, I had started co-writing really just in 2019, so I hadn't been doing that for very long. And so when I moved to Franklin, I kind of thought, I would need to, um, I don't know, like I guess pay my dues or earn my spot here in the Franklin, Nashville area. And since I was new, I just didn't expect people to be so welcoming, and it was totally different than what I expected. Everybody was super welcoming, super helpful. And it's crazy how I've met a lot of people here from Texas, but I didn't meet as many people in music when I was in Texas. And so, but here it's such a smaller community or a smaller kind of area that I run into people all the time that I write with, and that's been really special. So, I mean, I started with getting connected with GMA. That was a big part of my journey when I first got here. I connected with them, and then that led to connecting with people at Redbird Common. If you have heard about that, Writers Round is a great round to check out. So I played there a couple times, got connected with some more people, and yeah, just things like that of people really supporting the industry, supporting indie artists and songwriters has been awesome to see, especially songwriters, because you don't always see songwriters being, recognized or just having different things for writers specifically. And since I've been out here, there's just been so many functions like that to go to, and people to meet, and people are always down to meet someone new and write, and so that's been really great.
That's awesome.
it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to say that you moved from like Texas to Nashville or Franklin area because like Brandon said, like Grace Graber, like you didn't say, but like you brought Grace Graber. She moved from Oregon to Nashville slash Franklin. Then we met with other artists who moved from like Nashville to wherever or from to Nashville.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I think maybe that's why everyone's so welcoming, because we're all people that have moved here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like it's rare that I meet people that are from here. I do have some friends that are born and raised Nashville. But yeah, I feel like everyone's like, "Hey, I needed help when I came here. I needed, a friend, and so let me be a friend to you kind of thing. And it's funny about Grace, you bringing her up in that show that we played at. So I had an EP releasing in 2021. And so gosh, I'm like, is that right? Or did it come out in 2020? I'll have to look it up later. I can't remember when I released things. But anyway, I was playing a show and I only knew Grace through Instagram, just through online, and she seemed cool and seemed like a friend I should have. And so she was moving out here that October, whichever year it was. And I had reached out just asking if she would be willing to be there at the show to play some songs. And so we first met at my show where she was going to play some music, and that was the start of us getting to know each other and getting to be friends. But yeah, it's been a cool experience to meet people from all over the place, and Nashville is kind of our common thread, and yeah, it's been really good.
You just said you released an EP in like 2020, 2021. We'll just say like in that range. But
Yeah, somewhere.
you said you had no music coming out soon. Can you tell us like what we can expect from the new music, like a possible date or whatever?
Yeah, so I actually have a single that I'm co-releasing with my friend Connor Flanagan, who would be another great addition to this podcast. But he is a Christian like hip hop rap artist, and so we have been working on this song. We actually wrote it not long after I moved here in 2020. And so this is part of his project that I'm excited to be a part of. So we're releasing that this Friday. It's called Runaway. And then in a couple of months, I will be releasing my first single on my own, and it's called Just Wanna Know Me. And I'm really diving more into the pop soul sound that's still under the Christian umbrella, I would say. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've been working on that for a bit now, and we're kind of fine tuning and getting all of that wrapped up. So that's exciting. And then I've got a couple more on the way after that. I don't want to throw out dates because that always gets adjusted, but the next single for sure, yeah, is gonna be in June. So
Brandon, you have anything you want to add? Questions?
Yeah, you mentioned your EP Healing that came out. Whatever year it came out, I don't recall either. But like it's definitely an amazing EP, and like the songs like For the One, Healing, and definitely it's got some heavy themes in there, a lot that you went through. And then hearing Neon Arrows, which is probably my favorite song from you thus far, an amazing like pop song definitely in there. How is your musical process, like your story? Because it's amazing how artists, I love hearing their stories through music. And in Healing, you share such a story, and then in Neon Arrows, you're going towards this pop thing. Like, what's been your musical journey in this through that time in the middle?
yeah, thank you so much. So Healing, that EP I wrote by myself, and it was really through processing a lot of my story. So before I moved out here back in 2014, I went through a super unexpected divorce, and right after that, like a week later, my dad had passed suddenly in an accident. And so those two just really traumatic things I went through, and God really took me on a journey of several years of processing and healing. And so those songs were written out of that time. And so a lot of those, each one kind of speaks to a different thing. And during that time, I didn't even know that you can release songs yourself, that it's, you can go about that process. And so God really started speaking to me in 2019 about releasing music. And that's when I really had to put more of those fears aside and step out and share my story and share about those things. And so Healing is really special to me just because it does share that story and share those times that I went through and just what God has done in my life. And then Neon Arrows I wrote with my friend Sam Hart, which was actually the first song that I wrote after moving out here. And he had just moved out here, I think a couple months before I did, and he's from California. So we had written online before, but that was our first in-person write. And he brought this idea of Neon Arrows on his way traveling to Tennessee. He was just looking around and thinking about all that God has done for him and in his life, and similar to mine, and how everything is pointing back to God like a neon arrow, And I just thought that was such a cool idea of something so obvious and how we can find that all around us. And so he definitely added the more pop production kind of side to that. Before I'd worked with a different producer in Texas, and those songs being a little more sentimental. I would say For the One is probably the closest one that was a little more pop driven. And yeah, healing was a big part of finding my sound also. I feel like that was really just exploring emotions, what I wanted to say, and it came out in different kind of styles. I grew up listening to different genres of music, some pop, some soul, a lot of country. I feel like everything under the sun I grew up listening to. So that was just part of the journey, I feel like, to get me to now. Releasing Neon Arrows was so pop, and now we're diving more into the soulful side. This still has the pop elements with it. And so, yeah, it's been a big journey between those two. They are vastly different. When I tell people to go listen to a song, I'm like, well, Neon Arrows is, pretty different from Healing. So I'm excited for the ones coming out that I feel like in writing these new ones, it's as soon as we wrote them, I'm like, okay, this is my sound. This is the direction I feel like I'm supposed to be going in. So, and I think it will evolve. I think that's what's nice about music. You change, we as people evolve, and our sounds are going to change. And so I'm looking forward to where that leads me, and, not being stuck in one specific box. So
Definitely love that.
This is gonna be more of a random fun question.
I love it.
If you could write with anyone, who would you love to write with? Like, if you could choose anyone to write a song with, who would you choose?
Oh man, okay, no lie, I have a list on my phone of people to write with, so I could give you a whole list. The one that is popping up in my mind, well, there's two. One would be Ethan Hulse. He is just like dominating all the songs right now. I feel like he has some good pop. I feel like he does a lot of kind of pop influenced kind of songs. Another would be Emily Wise Band. Her lyrics I feel like are so good. I'm just gonna give you more. Let's see. I'm trying to think soulful wise. I don't know. Another one that comes to mind is Dave Barnes. I've been a huge Dave Barnes fan for the longest, and so he's one I would just love to write with him and see what his process is, and just I think it would be a good hang, if anything. He's just like a fun guy, so that would be fun.
Dave Barnes is a great artist. I remember his album God Give Me You. It's like the only album I ever listened to him, but it's like one of my favorite albums actually. So
Yeah, so good. I saw him I was still in high school, and he came through Texas for a show, and that's when I first heard of him, and it might have been his first album that was out, and I was just blown away. And so I've been a big fan since then, and yeah, anything he puts out. If he's doing a show, like I've seen him many times. I've met him a couple times. He would not remember that, but but yeah, I'm a big fan for sure.
sorry, I lost my train of question. So if you have a question, go ahead, Brandon. I had a question, then I lost my thought.
You're
So
good. You're good.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I saw you perform at that show, which is again amazing. And I've
Thanks.
heard like you played at a few Bird Commons since then. GS and Bar, both amazing teams of songwriters getting together. What's it been like now doing shows now that you've gotten more used to it? Because I know you said that was like one of your first shows you did. So what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, I was always super afraid to play in front of anyone, sing in front of anyone. I've always kind of struggled with a lot of anxiety, and I think that's something that God has used for me to rely on Him to be able to do all these things and not to do it in my own strength. And so it's one of those things like, I wish I weren't so nervous in front of people, but at the same time, it always reminds me, okay, I need God to be able to even do this. And so yeah, I would say that it's been that I've grown a lot, and I'm thankful to God for that, because He's really just brought me through a lot of that. Even that first show that you saw, thank you for being there, by the way. But that first show, I had such an anxiety attack before that show that nobody even knew about. And I can't even explain why or anything, like nothing happened, but it was just really hard. And so since playing that, shows have gotten so much easier and a lot more fun. Like, it's funny thinking back to the first time I played at Redbird, I didn't really know anybody in the room. And now the second time I played there, I had so many friends out there in the crowd, and it just made it more fun. And it was cool to look and see what God's done there of, moving to a place where I did not know a single person, and then seeing his faithfulness in all of these new friends that, I've been able to write with and work with. That's been really great. So I really enjoy the writers rounds. They've been a lot of fun, like Jesus in a Bar, that is a great one too. And just because I love to hear the stories behind the songs, and then someone share their song. And you can also play, like typically at those, I'll play a song that I've just written, or, it doesn't have to be something that's released, and there's not as much strategy to it, I guess. It's a lot of times it's whatever I feel like God's put on my heart to share for that night. So that makes it a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so what kind of advice would you give like someone that is like you, like they moved from like Texas to like Nashville or like wherever to
Yeah.
or wherever the big music capital? What kind of advice would you give a person that would be doing something similar that you did?
Oh man. I would say to be patient with the process, which process is not a fun word. Nobody likes that. Or at least I don't. But I think I came into it not having big expectations because it was 2020 and I just didn't expect to really meet people or anything. And so maybe that helped. But being patient and also remembering that God is faithful. Like I know I keep saying that, but there's times where I get discouraged, or I think about the things that you're sacrificing. By moving here, I'm sacrificing time with my family back in Texas, time with friends back in Texas, and so in those times where I'm like, oh, you can get kind of unsure or whatever, I always look back at the things, how God brought me here. And I think, if nothing else, like I know that God brought me here for a purpose. I don't know fully what it is, but I'm going to at least do my best to see it through. And so I think just holding on to that in the times, because it is hard. Like when you first move and you're in a new place and you don't know things yet, it's hard. But remembering that God is faithful, he brought you here for a reason, and just being patient and kind of embracing the process, I would say.
There are a few good words. So if anyone's watching it, write this down. I don't know, memorize them. So
Yeah.
we have a few more minutes. Is there anything else you want to talk about? The floor is yours. You can talk about anything you want.
I want to ask you guys, what inspires you with music? Like what are you listening to? What do you feel most inspired by right now?
Right, do you want to start or do you want me to start? Look at your face. It's like, I don't know.
It's like, okay. You go first.
I can start if you don't have anything yet too.
You go first, yeah.
Okay. So like I'm more of the lyrics person. So like I like reading lyrics, and like I pick out like song quotes from lyrics. So I'm like that person. So like I'm trying to think. It's hard to think of them on top of my head.
I know, I just put you on
Like-
the spot. And
no, you're good. So like I know Matthew West does really good with lyrics, or Casting Crowns. They are like two of the better, or Mercy Me. Those are like three of the top lyric artists that you can pull like a quote. And then like I used to like pull a quote from a song and find a picture on Google and make like picture quote things, because that's like the thing that
yeah,
me.
I
But that was
love
like
that.
that was like 2015.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As for me, yeah, again, great question. It just definitely put us on the spot, but like I love it because there's so many stories I can say about how music's touched me personally, especially like bands like from worship artists like Plant Shakers, even some old Chris Tomlin, other artists as well. And then on pop side, rock side, TFK, rap, even from so many styles of music, these lyrics, like Brendan said, they're definitely lyrics that have helped me. Like I've struggled with depression and anxiety, along with just really, I'm the quiet type. So, but I really used to be even more quiet. Music really was like my finding place. It was where I was able to accept the identity that God's called me to and be able to step and live that out more so. And again, there's so many stories that ran through my head when you said that question about how some of my friends have been saved through these songs. Some of my friends have been impacted, their life's been changed, their entire direction. They were going one way, and then God uses a song to change them. Like it's just amazing and beautiful how God's using music. It's so much more than just creativity, which is beautiful. That's that, but it's the creativity with the message that God's using so strongly in people's lives, and it never gets old hearing that. So that inspires me. That always pushes me and Brendan to, like with this podcast, to help artists, to help get this music out there and help give listeners some more artists to listen to and more songs that can help get them through their day, get them through their week, and to know that there's purpose, that there's a God who's with them, and he's a God who's actually relational with them through music. And it's just beautiful to see.
And
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead.
I also like stories and songs. So like a couple, like when I saw Matthew West, he told us a story about it was like March 12th of like 2020, like right when COVID comes, he got to the venue. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're canceling the concert and everything." And he had to like take a taxi to the airport, but they said they were going to cancel flights starting like tomorrow, so he had to get home that night and everything to his family. And he got in the taxi, and there was some guy played it. He was in a like just a taxi driver. He didn't know who it was or Uber. It was a taxi or Uber. He put on the radio. The taxi driver was singing a song, and Matthew West started singing the song. And then the taxi he asked the taxi driver didn't know it was Matthew West in the backseat. He's like, "How did I do?" He's like, "Good." He's like, then Matthew's like, "How did I do?" He's like, "He's all right, but he's not as good as the guy on the radio and everything."
Oh
So,
man.
so like the taxi driver had no idea it was him, like as they were singing through his
Yeah.
song together and everything. So I like stories like that
Yeah.
too, songs and everything.
I love
So
that.
so
Yeah.
I'm more for the lyrical meaning and stories more or less.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, well, thank y'all for answering. I'm sure you didn't expect a question from my side, but I was just curious. I think my favorite part of being an artist, being a songwriter, is hearing the stories that come back from the people that get to listen, to the music. And because there's so much that's focused on number of streams or number of followers and all these things. And at the end of the day, like, just numbers don't, mean as much as actually the stories behind it and how it's impacting people. And that's the whole reason we're doing what we're doing. And that's what I felt on even some of these songs that I haven't promoted as much, like that were a part of healing. Some of those about grief and things like that, I've had people reach out saying how much it meant to them, and the just how much it encouraged them through a really dark time for them. And that's what really keeps me going, and has inspired me more, to stay true to that, stay true to what I feel like God's telling me to share, because he's going to use it and going to, share it with who needs to listen to it. So I've definitely learned to be more open-handed with that, and try not to worry as much about all these things that the industry tells us to worry about, or whatever it may be, and just focus on what it is that he's trying to do, and try to be an open vessel for that. So yeah.
That's kind of like how our podcast was starting. We were trying to get like a theme, or like we went through songs and we went through like all the themes and messages, stories, lyrics, and we try to compile them on from the album. So we would choose an album. But now we're going away more towards like singles and talking to artists about their music and things and stories. So we still do an album here or there, but that's how the
Yeah.
podcast actually really started.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Like episode 1, which was actually 6 months ago.
Oh, wow, man. It's just flown by for y'all, I bet.
Well, we posted like 5, 6 episodes, then we took like a 2 month break because we were like, are we going to continue
Yeah.
with this? Then
Yeah.
like since like the first of the year, we've released like an episode like every week, other than like 2 weeks this year. So
Wow, man, just going all in. I love it.
exactly. So
Yeah.
yes,
I still love albums. I love a collection of songs. And I think I don't know, I tend to be more artsy about it, I guess, where if it's gonna be an album or an EP, it needs to all be cohesive and like a combined story. And so for me, I think planning for singles coming out, each one, they do line up where they're kind of cohesive, but they're still telling their own story. So I'm kind of excited to go the singles route, but I do still love albums for sure.
Mhm.
last question. This is gonna be the last question, I promise.
Okay.
It's because we have like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite album? We're talking about albums. Like what's one of your favorite albums that like carries a theme or message throughout?
Oh man. Um as soon as I get off of this, I will be able to think of the exact answer and be like, that was the one I should have said. I will tell you, I'll just tell you an album I'm going through right now. Okay. Here's two. The one that I always go back to when I don't know, when I'm just like going through a hard time or what, or just need some peace. Um, Hillsong's, oh, I'll have to look it up. Live, it's their live album that they recorded in like the Sea of Galilee, like all the different places. Like it's that live album. I'll have to look up what it's called because I can't even think of it right now. But that one, and then besides that, the album that I've been listening to this week, I'm a huge fan of Madison Ryan Ward. Do y'all know her?
Mhm.
She she's here in Nashville, but she's another one that does like pop soul kind of stuff. She just released an album called A New Thing on Friday. So that is the one that that's where, I mean, if it's someone that I just already know I'm gonna love all of their songs, she's one of those people. And so I have been listening to that album so far all this week. Okay, it's Hillsong of Dirt and Grace, Live from the Land. That's the one. That's the one that I always go back to, just because I think it's so special, the songs that they're singing, and then that they're singing them in the places from the Bible, the places where everything happened. There's just such a like holy reverence there that I really love. So anytime I listen to that album, I'm like, oh, it just puts me at peace. I don't know. So that's the one that I would say I go back to.
So we're kind of running out of time, unfortunately.
Okay.
I could talk for hours, but like we try to keep these episodes within reason. We don't want to hear people talk for like 3 hours. I know there's a podcast
sure.
I listened to at one point. There was like a 3 hour episode. I was like, how do you have 3 hours?
No, I can't do it. I can't. My
Exactly.
drive time is like 30 minutes. 30 minutes is the max. Yeah.
Exactly. But thanks again for joining us. We appreciate taking your time to join us this week. So
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
and thank you for everyone that's listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe if you like what you're listening to, and we'll see you guys again soon shortly. Thank you.